What's going on? What's
What
going on?
up?
Welcome to
What
another
up?
episode of the Love God, Love Sex podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Heath.
Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Jamie. Hope you
Back,
guys have had a wonderful day today.
back in the saddle, ready to ride to the horizons of our
Hey,
conversational future.
giddy up, my nigga.
Yeah. I always think about that. What was that group? They did Hay in the Middle of the Barn. They're from Chicago.
Oh, crucial conflict.
They had a song like that. It's like, giddy up,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that.
Bob.
Ride the rodeo.
You ride the rodeo? Yeah, Crucial
Mm-hmm.
Conflict. Thanks for bringing that out. They had the CC back to back, like that was their logo.
Mm-hmm. That was actually pretty dope. I
Yeah.
think Chanel took that or did something like a little version.
Yeah. Chanel was like, okay, I get jiggy with it. Don't mind if I do.
I can actually pay for this copyright, this trademark.
Exactly. Crucial Conflict.
No one will ever know.
Exactly. Another war in Africa. Sorry to hear it.
No one's gonna know.
Exactly.
The gift that goes around.
So, guys, as always, social media, check us out. Thanks for all the love you've been giving us. YouTube at Love God, Love Sex Pod. Same handle at TikTok. Follow us on TikTok, subscribe on YouTube, and on all the audio platforms, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify at Love God, Love Sex Pod. Go ahead and just take that mouse and press it right there on the subscribe button. Always available on email, connected lovegodlovesexpodcast.net. Today's episode. Is there such thing as being unequally yoked? But for those who may not know what that phrase refers to, let's even bring it down a little bit more. Is there such thing as marrying beneath you? Is there such thing as dating beneath you? And we're going to explore this topic, so let's get right into it so we can maximize our time together. This episode, as always, is inspired by a creator online. And as you know, Jay and I like to shout out the creators that provide us the content and the fuel for our conversations, because it's always about giving citations and credit back where credit is due. Kimberly Nicole Foster, check her out on TikTok. She's a feminist. She says in her profile, I make things for the internet, Harvard grad feminist, and she has a Patreon for Harriet. That's usually the name that she uses, for Harriet. And she has some interesting takes, especially around the Ebony K. Williams heated topic that continues to roll on. Ebony K. Williams, I saw recently, was on The View. And she had an interesting conversation, which was really about somebody asking her, would you date a blue-collar person? And it just gave us inspiration to talk about dating beneath you or dating unequally yoked. For those who don't know, dating unequally yoked is your term used in the Black church setting, about dating somebody who does not align with your values. Now, initially and historically, when it says someone's not aligned with your values, they're talking about spiritually, right? If you are of the Jewish faith historically, in the times of the Bible, you wouldn't marry somebody who's not of the Jewish faith, somebody who maybe worships a pagan god or a pantheon of gods. You wouldn't be necessarily yoked. And for those in the Christian faith, an evangelical Christian church in the American context, you wouldn't want to marry somebody who was Hindu, for example, or Buddhist. You would be unequally yoked. Somebody even in the church who doesn't come to church as frequently as you do, attend Bible studies or pray. It's all about finding the standards of what it defines to mean to be in the insider group, and you wouldn't marry somebody in the outsider group. And unfortunately, as with all games regarding inside and outsider, those lines get crossed all the time, and those circles get smaller and smaller and smaller, more restrictive, and I would say even more discriminatory. But that's a conversation for another time. One of my favorite faces on this podcast. That's a conversation for another time. But dealing with this concept of marrying beneath you, Jay, do you think it's possible for someone to marry somebody or to date somebody beneath them?
Yes, it's happened to me. And somebody let me know very explicitly. I was dating somebody who was 10 years my senior. So they had already had some strides in their career that I didn't have. I was really just kind of starting out. And, they met someone who I guess was more in line with their standards.
Yep.
And, text me like, hey, I found somebody who's more the man that I'm looking for, or that can afford me and keep me up. Farewell, sweet prince.
Blew a kiss. Yo, and just that was the end of it. You know what I love
Or
about
just
guys?
fire a gun. Yeah.
I love about being a guy. Sometimes you just get so used to being rejected, it becomes comical in these kinds of conversations. You're not even like looking at it crying. You're just like, it was bound to happen.
I mean, it was definitely messed up the way she did it though.
Oh yeah, text messages
But
is
it was while I was down. Cause so basically what happened was I was actually working two jobs when we met, and I had wanted to venture into modeling. And she convinced me at the time, like, yo, if you're really gonna do it, like you really need to do it. Quit your job, quit both of your jobs and like
mm,
really go hard. And I did. And it was like for a couple of months it was all good. And then I saw the ugly side of the modeling industry. I got tired of people asking, how bad do you want this job?
yep. Men and women,
Um,
right? Men and women
yeah, men and women, and feeling like, you know, the only way to get ahead was to compromise
was to
values.
get ahead.
Right, exactly.
The only way to get ahead was to
Is
get
to get
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah,
to give ahead. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? But yeah, and so during that period when I left that, I did not I didn't really show any, you know, ambition, I guess, to go back to work to corporate full time, just like right away. And I think within like 30 days, bro, 30, 45 days, she said she was out with her girls. She met somebody. And yeah, bro, I guess it, you know, it was like,
Yo.
hey, man, you don't own the bus. You just ride it. You just drive it right now.
Get your non-bus owning self
Up out of here.
out of
You know what I'm
here,
saying?
out
So
of here.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think it can happen. And I think I don't know if
Sorry.
there's anything wrong with that either. You know what I mean? If
No,
someone
nothing wrong
is
with that.
not if y'all are not aligned, I mean, I think there's obviously ways to go about it where you don't, you know, demean somebody's humanity. But the topic itself, is it possible or do people do that? I think it happens a lot. I mean, I've mostly seen what the girl was talking about in the clip. I've mostly seen
Yeah,
it
Kimberly Nicole Foster.
where women yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah, Kimberly
content
Nicole
creator.
Foster. Yep.
I've actually seen that a lot too. You know, men who are not making as much as the women that they're dating, and I think, you know, sometimes it goes on for a little while, and they're able to, I guess, kind of get over some things or get through some things together. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of times what ends up happening is, especially if you don't show the kind of ambition that's going to keep a woman around, they're going to feel like you're a burden. They're carrying you. And, you know, I don't think women are wired to share resources with men long term. So it's only going to be,
Yeah, that's
she's only going to
interesting.
be able to do that for a while
That's
before
yeah,
it's just like,
it's
all
a
right, man,
problem.
I need to find somebody that's really on my level.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So just to close the loop, put a bow on it, Kimberly Nicole Foster goes on to say she wouldn't date somebody blue collar because she has seen scores of women, scores of black women to be specific, from different ethnicities, different nationalities, again, all black women who at one point in their life, especially the older ones, did not have a requirement for someone to have a college degree, didn't have a requirement for education, didn't have a requirement for income, married these men, partnered with these men, coupled with these men, and the outcomes for them, and I presume for the relationship, were disastrous. She goes on to say that while we are pushing for men to be with women, or really pushing women to be with these men, blue collar men or men who only have a certain income, she brings up one factor: class. And two factors, actually, but the first one is class. That you could talk about income, but the issue is, what happens when your class is different? So she says she would probably date someone who's less income, but in the same class structure. What are we reading together? What books are you being exposed to? What skills do you have? What newspapers do we read? What values do we have? We saw Ebony K. Williams talk about this, where she says, I'm not going to be with a man and fight over immunizing my child. I'm not going to fight over our education. So her, with her status and her pedigree, which is quite deep and I would say prestigious, she doesn't want to have to fight on certain things because people who come from a similar class understand the route to perpetuate class going into further generations. And when you have people in two different class modes, they don't understand that there's what I would call a narrative clash. My narrative as a blue collar person, your narrative as a middle to upper middle class person, they clash. Some people would say the same thing if you're wealthy versus someone who's just middle or upper middle class. The second issue she brought up was resentment, that no one discusses how resentful many of these men are once they're in these relationships, and then they have to deal with the real life issues, problems, and just everyday requirements that are coming out of a relationship like that, where there's a difference in class. And these men get very resentful, they get very hurt, angry, because they're not providing, and then that may be a downward spiral to someone perceiving them not protecting, and whether it's coming from their spouse, the woman, or it's coming from outside the home, it's just impinging upon them, and eventually just they feel neutralized, or in some cases fully removed from being able to be the man, quote unquote, in that picture. Now, that was some of my interpretation of what she said. If you want to hear what she said, definitely go back and check out her post and check out her work. So I do believe, like you, that you can marry beneath you. I think the first thing for me, marrying beneath, is about spiritual values, because that's what I value. I've seen people go out of their way, and this is just in my Christian church experience, marry somebody who is not as fervent in prayer, or not as serious in prayer, not necessarily in line with tithing, not in line with what are the makings of a good church person, right? You're showing up, you're tithing, you're volunteering, and maybe you do some spiritual work that would be considered Bible reading and prayer. And then you marry somebody who doesn't have those kinds of values, doesn't necessarily mitigate their life through prayer, doesn't necessarily negotiate their life through the lens of Psalms or Proverbs or Matthew or Obadiah, Nahum, or any of these books of the Bible. And then next thing you know, you're trying to live a quote unquote biblical life, where you're always seeking the Bible or passages from the Bible to help you understand how to pay your bills on time, or when's the best season or best energy to buy a house. All of these particular things that you do and have to do when you're in a relationship, they're relying on maybe their wisdom, maybe some external books, but they're definitely not using the Bible. And then now there's a narrative clash that leads to sometimes irreparable harm in the relationship.
Unraveling.
Yeah, unraveling. So that's the first part. Now, marrying beneath you with class, I believe that Kimberly Nicole Foster has some good points. What I have noticed, especially in the bipartisan war that we're in, and we always say even the gender war, is that class is not really being surfaced and discussed, but people are becoming very prejudiced about the literature and the mediums in which they're obtaining information, because now it's not just about literature. It's not just about, okay, this book or this newspaper or this pamphlet or this small novella, or even nonfiction, even fiction literature is becoming even kind of subsumed or caught up in that. What's really happening is people are saying, if you watch Fox News, then I can read who you are. If you watch MSNBC, then I can read who you are. If you read the Drudge Report, I can read who you are. If you're listening to Zerlina Maxwell, the Progressive Channel, I could read who you are. And then people are making judgments about the type of information that these people, A, are consuming, and then B, that they're acting on. And we saw that best exemplified during the pandemic with the whole vaccine versus anti-vaccine. People will say, people do your research. Well, I'm doing my research. Well, then people would cough up all of these resources that affirm what they believe, and then if you were pro-vax, they would cough up all of these resources that affirm what they believe. But there really wasn't any critical thinking or cross-talking or cross-analysis of the resources that were being offered. And of course, when I get into that, people say, well, what did the anti-vax have as real resources? That's a whole nother story. And so maybe the anti-vaxxers would say the same thing. The point is, people now are using the ways in that you consume information and the mediums that you have to judge who you are, and that is becoming part of class. And now saying, I can't be with you, evidenced by the fact that when Trump was there, people were breaking up for people who A, voted for Trump, or B, continue to support Trump. We saw a lot of relationships become severed for that, friendships and also intimate romantic relationships.
Facts. But I mean, anytime you start politicizing any issue, it's going to get like that. We talked about that, the extremism. So
yeah, but I think this is tying into what Kimberly Nicole Foster is saying, that you can't just tell somebody, well, he makes $40,000, go ahead and do it because he's a good man, Savannah. He's a good man. No, you have to ascertain, well, how is this man processing his life? What are the main points of access points or touch points to self-improvement, uh, whether it's regarding health, whether it's regarding their mental health, their well-being as far as their spiritual well-being, raising children, planning for the future. Are you making $40,000, for example, as a lawyer who works and defends immigrant rights? Are you making $40,000 as a public defender who's trying to do their best to give children who are coming through the system a good plea deal or a good deal to get out? There's people making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 because the market they're in, usually if it's around social service market, does not afford and does not support that type of high level, high net worth salary, or what we believe people have high net worths don't get their money off salaries or W-2s, and we know that already. But where they are making a lot of money because, hey, there's a lot of money to be made here. Some people are in the trenches in some of these camps in Texas, working with immigrants, trying to secure immigrants' rights, fighting some of these larger policy battles, and you don't make a lot of money doing it, working for a senator or a congressperson or municipality or a nonprofit. So someone like that, I think, Kimberly Nicole Foster said, can be with somebody who's a Citibank lawyer, because we're both lawyers, we're both doing law school, we've both been through the higher education curriculum that's somewhat mirrored, and we could do that. Someone who makes $40,000, I'm trying to think of a profession, and I'm not trying to demean a profession.
Like maybe just being a substitute teacher.
I wouldn't even say substitute teacher, because even you have to be educated. I think she was saying blue collar. Well, right now I just started at this factory putting together widgets. That's the classic business example, widgets. I'm working as a glassmaker. I'm working as an HVAC person, and HVAC guys make great money. But I just started, so I have to work my way up the apprentice. I can have my own HVAC business, but this is where I'm at 23, 24, 25 years old. You just got your law degree. Hey, do you want to get together? Well, have you read Chaucer? Have you read Toni Morrison? Have you read Alice Walker? Have you read Bell Hooks? Have you? No. Well, I can't be with you because all you have is a high school education, and you're okay with that level of education and the lens that it painted for you of the world, or the lenses it gave you to view the world.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the differences in that class mindset and that kind of scenario are glaring. And I mean, she would just be like, yeah, you're not the guy for me. And I mean, again, I don't think she's wrong for saying that. Obviously, I feel like there are ways that you could do that again, don't minimize someone or demean them. But I just feel like, given where we are right now, just in terms of like how bad dating seems right now, modern dating seems, I just feel like there are I don't even want to call it bigger fish to fry, but I think there are bigger differences in ways that people think that, to her point, can really set you on a disastrous course. So sometimes you do have to filter through class, and you got to think about how this person grew up and their pedigree and where they come from and what's influencing them and what's motivating them, and how they process their anger. Like, all you do have to think about some of those things. Now, here's the thing. I really don't want to use the language date beneath. I would rather just say date apart, because just because you may come from a quote unquote higher class background does not mean your values have any more, I guess, moral weight than someone who doesn't come from that background.
Yeah.
And so I would just reframe that language than saying dating
Perfect.
beneath.
Yeah. I think that's perfect. And we always are out, as we know from our mission, to promote self acceptance and healing. And if that's going to help move us more to our goal and our mission of self acceptance and healing, then definitely, why not? I'm absolutely for it, 110,000%. So dating apart, right? Dating in a way where it's outside of your circle of comfort and understanding. Perfectly fine. So it seems like you're agreeing with Kimberly Nicole Foster and saying, hey, there's you do have to be mindful. And the first thing I think about that is travel. Some people just don't like to travel, and some people love to travel. And when you travel, you really do gain a different perspective of the world. A lot of your prejudices are shed. A lot of opportunities. You receive a lot of opportunities to think through and renew your mind. See exposures of, well, see, just be exposed to the different parts of people's soul, and also exposed to different parts of your soul. And it's just a renewing and just heavenly experience to travel. But
Super enriching. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely, enriching is the right word. But I can see people who just don't do that. And if you are married to somebody like that, they're gonna be hounding you. And if they're cheap with their money, why are you spending money on this? This is ridiculous. We should get a new washer and dryer. We need a new vacuum cleaner. I want to put the carpet down in the baby's room. This is outlandish. You are going to be hounded because some of the
There's
trips
only
that
so
people want
many
to go
times we
on,
can go to Miami.
yeah, they're going to
So
say
there's
that
only
to
so
you.
many times we could go to Vegas.
Or there's only so many times we can go overseas. All right, you saw Istanbul, you saw Naples.
No, I mean, I think the person who likes to
Oh
travel
yeah,
would say
exactly.
that to the
Yeah,
person who doesn't. Like, bro,
yeah,
how many times can we go to Virginia Beach?
yeah,
How,
exactly.
like,
Memphis, New York City, Toledo, Ohio.
yeah, oh, great, great. The Statue of Liberty. Okay, we going to see it again?
Yeah,
Great,
exactly,
great, great, great.
exactly. Oh, we have a good discount at Airbnb. My friend from college is up there. Let's just do New York again. And someone who loves to travel is going to say, "No, I actually want to do Perth, Australia."
Yeah, I want to go see Positano.
Yeah.
I want to go see where Paul preached in
Yes.
Athens. I want, like, let's get out. Let's see
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if someone is not into that, it really will be hell, because now you add in no, seriously, because I've heard this from a woman friend. Like, I mean, accusations of trying to destroy the man, and you waited. This stuff does happen.
Oh
This
yeah, I know.
this
It's
stuff does
real.
happen
It's real.
where you know you're trying to undermine our relationship with your interests or your quote unquote desires. And we're not even talking sexual, we're just talking shit that most people can do every single day with their clothes on. Oh, you trying to do more cooking classes? But you already know how to cook. Yeah, but I want to expand and learn how to
Right.
cook different dishes. But I like the hamburgers you make. They're good. Let's just stick with that.
Right. I want to learn how to make this vegan dish, or I want, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Now, this I will loop into Ebony K. Williams. Her whole comment and her retort back to people who questioned and really derided her about her whole bus conversation, Ivana.
Iyanla.
Ianya, thank you. I don't know why I keep butchering her name. Please forgive me. It's something I need to work with my pronunciation. It's like I can know all these words and then get to a name, or sometimes get to a word and just charge it, but it's definitely not on purpose. She talked about, you're the kind of person who comes home with C's and D's. And she used this whole grading system, which me and you talked about, was probably not
Bad move.
a bad
Mm-hmm.
move, not a good thing for her to do. But I will say this, what I have noticed is that there are people in life who are okay with C's versus living an A life. What do I mean by that? People who are okay with the bare minimum, and they won't do any more in order to get ahead and be that much more plugged into a more quality life. And I think that's more what she was talking about, because I do see that people who say, hey man, if you score really well on this civil servant exam, you can be placed in a higher bracket and have more opportunities quicker if you work for the city, for example, than if you get a lower score. Well, I just passed, so I'm good. Yeah, but don't you want the opportunity for more growth and maybe even more income, or to be viewed a certain way, have a certain status entering into your new job? Because that will be the first impression they have of you, that, hey, this guy did well, let's get to know him. And if you marry that with a good personality and good work ethic, hey, that job is yours. No, I'm good. I've heard people, for example, who have to be police officers, and there is a health requirement, right? So you have to be able to run 5 miles. You have to be able to do X amount of push-ups in 2 minutes. And some people will say, well, if the requirement's 5 miles, I'll run 5 miles every day. As opposed to, let me train my body to run 7 miles, because on the day of the exam, if my stomach is messed up, or if I'm not feeling well, or, I know that I'm so comfortable running 7 miles, it's that much easier for me to run 5. I know that if the requirement is 42 push-ups or 50 push-ups in 2 minutes, if I'm used to doing 100, 50 ain't going to be no thing. I'm going to bust that exam that test wide open. And some people just say, I'm good. I'll do 42. And just leave
Yeah.
it open to chance, or leave it open to some of the issues that happen on test days for all of us, where now you have just barely passed, if at all, because all you wanted to do was bare minimum. And that happens in these relationships. People who are married to people who are high achievers, or people who are bare minimum people.
Yeah, that's tough.
Even people who don't even want to tip. I'm not going to tip somebody. It's like, no, here in this hotel or any hotel, you tip as a way of A, showing people that you appreciate their work, and then B, these are people you form relationships who can give you information about the hotel, the resort, deals going on. And they'll even tell you to look out
Area.
if there's an issue going on.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't go
Yep.
down there tonight, Poppy. Don't. Oh,
Yep.
hey, don't go down there, sir. Don't go down there. All right, cool,
Yeah.
man. Thanks. So, they're doing little things for you to feel connected to you, even if it's a transactional relationship for a week or 2 weeks at a resort. But there's people who will fight you about giving a tip.
Yeah, facts. I can't be with that person.
Yeah.
Like,
So this whole thing about dating apart or dating different has something to be there. I mean, even if you're with somebody who's not a family person and you are really with your family all the time.
right. I know a lot of guys who wanted to have kids,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? The women that they were dating, just they wanted to preserve their body, and it was just like, yo, we not aligned in that way. Or I mean, just like you talked about, because I feel like the tipping thing is really more about uh, being gracious to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you can't really show gratitude or even consider the fact that you're like, this is what these people live off of. If you just don't have the capacity to see that, and empathize with that and be just a giver from that space, yeah, that's hard for me. I wouldn't be able to date somebody like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had a like super bad chick. We went out, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yo, just the way that I heard her talk to the wait staff, I was like, oh yeah, this would be the last time we hang out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, for
That's
sure.
to me that was one of those big we dating differently.
Yeah.
We dating apart.
Oh yeah, we taking apart. Yeah, because I mean, because I can't tolerate that type of behavior. And there's more to it. There's more instances of this that go on that I do believe the content creator Kimberly Nicole Foster does have a point, and even I believe Ebony K. Williams' point on some of these issues were accurate. Again, my issue with Ebony K. Williams was maybe the articulation, the use of certain words or phrases, or her setup that just, I think, ultimately soured on the delivery. But her, as we said, Ebony K. Williams, that's her opinion. That's her opinion. That's what she wants. That's what she wants. Why are we deriding and pulling this woman down for her opinion? Same thing with Kimberly Nicole Foster. She's offering some points here about why she wouldn't do certain things, because she's seen anecdotally for some of her relationships and network, those relationships ended up to be pretty disastrous. And they are hard when someone's saying to you, we have to save, or we have to do certain things to have certain experiences, and they just don't understand. It just doesn't compute.
Yeah. If it doesn't click, man, and it's hard to sit down and try to talk to them about it and
Mm-hmm.
make them understand. And then you start rethinking. Yo,
Yeah,
did I marry? Am I with the right person? Because they don't even get the fact that I want our kids to have a college fund. They don't even get, I mean, it's
it's
simple,
true.
but again, like that could be how big the difference is in terms of how you grew up, where you come
Mm-hmm.
from. And I mean, sometimes for some people, this is what I wanted to say about the content creator. Class is not always something that people take into account, but or it's not the thing that's maybe leading the criteria in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the partner that they're looking for. But sometimes it is a big factor, and
Yeah.
sometimes you do have to consider it. And I hear her when she says, it's something that's not always really talked about.
Yeah, she said that. And another post she has, she's like, people criticizing Ebony K. Williams, they were trying to say that she's classist, but she's like, I don't think classism came into it at all, because most people, like you just said, she says, don't talk about classism. It's not really surfaced in American life, even though it's one of the cross-cutting factors that you could say is ultimately, it's the golden thread that really needs to be pulled on if we want to talk about uniting, and you want to talk about labor rights and reimagining society and challenging inequities in real estate, healthcare, manufacturing, business, all across the board. Class is a unifying factor. But as we said in our first season with Cheryl Cashin, which we talked about interracial dating. We talked about interracial sex. Go out and check that episode from our first season. Cheryl Cashton talks about she's given up on the idea of an interracial, united front based on class similarities that could really challenge some of the discriminatory practices and structures that are inhibiting all Americans across all shades. Unfortunate.
Word. And on that note,
thanks guys for listening to this episode. As always, we appreciate your time and your dedication to listening to us and following up with us. Check us out on TikTok, YouTube at Love God, Love Sex Pod. Also check us out on audio platforms, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts at Love God, Love Sex Pod. Go ahead and subscribe and follow. Follow on TikTok, subscribe on the others. And we're on email, connect@lovegodlovesexpodcast.net. Check it out and give us some, feedback written, or if you want to give us feedback on the audio platforms, go ahead and give us that rating 5 out of 5 and leave us some comments and leave the email for show ideas and suggestions. Thanks again, guys. That's our episode for today. Until next time, take care.
Peace.